Howdy, y'all. This is Market Explainer, America's #1 business news podcast. Before we jump into that first story, I want to tell you to go hit up our Patreon. We are going to be loading up our Patreon with all sorts of new dynamic content from yours truly, and I guess the big man also will join us. My car podcast is going to be moving exclusively to Patreon. We're going to be doing some other stuff over there. So
see, I learn something new every time we talk about this. I do so little around here that it's hard really to keep up.
Right. I am running the show. As I've always said, I am the lead co-host, and the big man is the junior associate co-host. You can also go to our website, marketexplainer.com. We had many argument over that website getting developed, so you should definitely go check it out to make our arguments.
That in itself is worth figuring out, Yes.
So it's marketexplainer.com and patreon.com/marketexplainer. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. I fought tooth and nail to get that Facebook page rebranded.
Yeah, you did.
And then in our conversation, in our pre-show conversation, I came up with the better name, and I was like, we're stuck with this one. I'm not dealing with ever changing. We might change our logo, but we're never going to change our name because it's too freaking hard. So we're stuck now. I was supposed to legally change my actual name, and then I started looking at all the paperwork, and I have a couple licenses, like professional licenses and all this other stuff. And I have to change everything, and then all my bills have to get changed. And I was just like, this is too much work.
Laziness took over. I like it.
So I was like, I'm just gonna create an LLC in the name that I was gonna have.
Exactly.
And that will
there you go.
Yeah, that's as much as
that's the way to go. That's the easier. It's amazing how much easier it is to create a person as an LLC than it is to create a person in real life. Yes.
Well, actually, creating a person is not that hard. I know people who've gotten hammered and accidentally created a person. Listen, I've never gotten hammered and accidentally fixed my transmission, so it's actually pretty easy to make a person.
Can we go back to business now? Can we go back to business?
So listen, we can, but listen, we always say on the show we're not a political show,
and we're not.
The nature of the universe that we live in now is politics touches everything, and we don't want to be political. But if we want to talk about business, we're going to have to talk sometimes about things that are political.
There's going to be some overlapping stories from time to time that are relevant in business from week to week.
And, we're getting close to having done 50 episodes here. And this is a subject that we talked about in the first episode ever, which was, what is Trump going to do when he leaves office?
Right.
Now, let me just say this and preface this again, continuing my original preface, which is, we don't want to be political, but if we want to talk about business, nothing is off limits. That includes being political, talking about something political. We are making a promise here and now that we'll never pivot and become a political show because that's boring.
Right.
We are always going to have our laser focus on business news, but we're going to expand into some other things, none of which is going to be politics, but we're going to have to say some political things from time to time. And we're open and honest about everybody knows, right? There's one of us who's an independent, that guy. And then there's the other one who was correct about everything that happened to you in the last 18 months.
And everybody can guess based on what that says about you of your political affiliation. Anyway,
I have no political affiliation.
There are 3 parts to this story that we're going to talk about today, right? 3 different aspects.
All of them are hilarious to me. Every single one is funnier than the next one.
One of them, that previous President Trump, new media company is Trump Media and Technology Group, which is releasing a Truth Social, right?
It's
media
called
platform.
Truth Social, which is their social media.
Truth Social.
So what are the 3 things? Tell me the 3 things.
The second part of this we're going to talk about is the fact that once it was announced and was available to download, which was not supposed to be en masse until November, the hacker group Anonymous took control over it within hours. And third, that in a true Trumpian fashion, and I guess that's as political as I want to get about it, in true Trumpian fashion, the social media platform that he has created by himself is an actual ripoff of freeware that the company is already suing him for.
Okay, hold on, back up.
I'm just saying. Hold on.
Yeah, okay. We'll address what he just
We'll
said.
address
That's
all three
incorrect.
aspects. So those are the three parts of the story that actually need to be talked about, right?
Okay.
The existence, the immediate reaction by Anonymous, and then, of course, the platform creation itself and what's that meant.
Okay, so the first thing is Trump Media and what is it? Trump
Technology? Media and Technology Group. TMTG is what it's being called.
Which is, if I'm not incorrect, it's going SPAC. It's going public as a SPAC.
Well, that's the initial plan. It was actually announced all together. Here's my TMG, TMTG idea. The reason it's called a media group and the reason you have Truth Social is the original app, which is its only product at this point. But the idea, as Trump has said repeatedly since presidency, is he wants a media empire. He's
never said that. He's never said that, but he has gone to war with the media, which, again, we're not a political show, but I would say if this guy did anything that I agreed with, it was how he openly defecated on the corporate press. Just saying.
Well, since being banned from all social media platforms out there.
And here's the other thing that I find interesting here is in the run-up to his election in 2016, his son-in-law was running around the country and the world buying up smaller media firms, which lends credence to the conspiracy or the belief that is a little more conspiratorial, that his run for presidency, which is just like, listen, other people have run for presidency with the same intention.
Sure.
I forget the guy's name. Andrew Yang.
Which and then in turn tried to run for governor of New York and failed at that too. But
listen, that was obviously a ploy to running for president is a great way to get your name out there.
Correct.
None of us would know Marianne Williamson without her trying to run for office. That chick is lit. She is off her rocker nuts.
Yeah.
And I love her for that, right?
Sure.
And so part of my anarcho-capitalist kind of philosophy lends credence to going, hey, that person's nuts. So that's more me than the philosophy, I would say. But, and there was speculation that he did it as a ploy to say, hey, the media is lying to you. They're evil. And I'm launching my own, what at the time people believed to be a Fox News competitor.
Correct.
And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that's true. Now, this corporation, I believe the public arm of it, or the reverse merger part that was going to acquire this to make it public, the SPAC part of it was actually filed a few days after the election, and he lost in 2020. So if that, just again being political for a second, tells you everything you wanted. If you wanted to know how his true feelings.
Yeah, I mean, look, he knew he was going to do something, right? When you get deplatformed by Twitter and Facebook or whatever, even if, again, not trying to be political, but a run in 2024, even being a possibility, doing those without a social media presence would be next to impossible. I mean, it just would be. So to me, again, I don't even think this is a push 2024. I think it's yet another grift in that there are going to be millions of people that will download this app. There are going to be millions of people that will, at the very least, try to...
The stock is already a meme stock, which is great.
To try to in some way, and then you're going to have actual media companies out there, your Foxes, your CNNs, your whatever, are going to cover this in some way, however it goes. Whether it's a flaming bag of garbage or whether it takes off, they're going to cover it one way or the other.
And one thing that we have to give credit where it's due, and we have to say, listen, this guy was excellent at getting earned media. So in media, you have paid media, earned media.
Right.
Paid media is what you pay for. Earned media is you just went and created buzz, and now you don't need to pay for media coverage of whatever.
I doubt they paid $1 to advertise this truth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The stock. They haven't paid a penny to... Yeah,
nothing. It's all a reaction to his name being tied to it and that kind of stuff. But again, for the SPAC to actually succeed, right? So there are people out there that fall into the category that, look, this is a predetermined thing. It's going to succeed because it's got his name attached to it. And there's enough people out there to try it, right? That it will create itself. And that will essentially give President Trump he's always been a millionaire, right? He's always had these hard assets, his hotels and his whatever. Yeah. But this creates a different level of wealth if it succeeds, right? Yes. A completely different asset wealth that he can play with all the time. I mean, the hotels and stuff like that are on paper wealth, but they're not liquid. They don't pay in monthly salary. They don't, you know.
In one of the, there's a lot of documents that have leaked or come to light, and one of them said something along the lines of the Trump organization owes something like $500 million.
Right. Absolutely.
But here's the thing. The super wealthy, this isn't a condemnation or a critique. I'm just telling you how things are.
Sure.
Explaining it as we do on Market Explainer.
We're observing and reporting. That's what we're doing.
That's all we're doing. The uber wealthy use debt in a way that normal people can't and probably shouldn't.
Absolutely. And they leverage it in a way most people don't understand. It's one of the things that they consider.
Is you don't pay taxes on debt. So the point is you create assets and then you go borrow against those assets. Now, why you couldn't, if you're a regular person, is you don't have enough assets and you couldn't get enough money to balance out the interest.
Absolutely.
So the tax savings aren't going to be there for you because the interest on some of the loans you could get are going to be pretty sharky.
Right.
And you shouldn't because, listen, Trump and other wealthy people who are worth hundreds of millions and billions of dollars have lawyers that are getting paid thousands of dollars an hour to make sure that their assets are structured in such a way that, this is something that Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, he got sued by the Learning Annex, and the corporation that they sued had no assets. So he filed bankruptcy. Once the judgment came in, he filed bankruptcy.
Right.
And that the specific entity that they sued had
failed to exist at the bankruptcy, so it paid nothing.
And it's gone.
So let's kind of trend this back. So look, you've got someone that clearly set out because of his disbarment from social media platforms. He came out with what was essentially a blog at one point and said that was his new social media platform. It never took off, right? Yeah. It never took off. It wasn't. And now you have this, and it's first being Freedom Social. Now I'm going to kind of jump to. Well, I'm not going to jump to, but so you have Freedom Social, which is its only product of TMTG
no, it's called
at this
Truth.
point. I'm sorry, Truth Social.
Yeah.
Now, Truth
dumb
Social.
First of all, dumb name. But if you're going to call it something like Truth, go buy truth.com. It's going to cost you $2 or $3 million.
Right.
Because right now it's forwarding to somebody else's website. The fact that they didn't do that and they went forward announcing a SPAC.
Well, but this to me is how this is a whole bunch of boomers ideas. Look at the name, Trump Media, the Trump Media Technology Group. Very boomer, right? And then you turn around and go Truth Social because you have to name it social because it's a social media network. Again, all of these names came straight out of boomers, old white people with gray hair going, no, that's awesome. Truth Social. That'll be so great.
Why do you got to make it about white people?
I'm sorry, man. It's a boomer. Like this is all comes out of you. These names scream. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then you turn around and you know what the very first rule of their terms and conditions, the very first rule of a social media platform created for freedom and the Truth Social. You know what the number one rule is of the platform? Terms and conditions. And this is why, in my head, this ties into our second part of this story, which is why Anonymous kind of went in and created fake profiles for Trump and, Pence and yada, yada. Their very first rule of their terms and condition is on the Freedom and Truth social media app, you are not allowed to make fun of Donald Trump or the app of Truth Social.
That's great.
So that being the case, what did you essentially do to hacker groups? In this case, Anonymous is the one that did it, right? Or whatever. It's like going on the internet and going, hey, no one make fun of me, please. Can y'all stop making fun of me? What is the entire internet going to do now for the next week?
Yeah, it's called the Streisand Effect. For those of you who don't know, Barbara Streisand sued somebody for pointing out that she owned a house in California on the internet. And it turns out by pointing out that she owned a house somewhere in California, and suing the person for revealing that, let's say 10 people saw this, that this guy said, hey, here's a picture of Barbara Streisand's house. Hundreds of millions of people now know where that house is and that it's attached because she sued. Right. So it's a Streisand effect. So by telling people you're not allowed to make fun of these two things. So listen, first of all, this guy memed his way into the White House.
Well, again, not a political show. That is Danny's belief.
Yeah. I think we are entering, we're leaving the information age and we're entering the meme age. Meme magic is real, my friends. I was saying this 5 or 6 years ago to a friend and he's like, I think you're out of your freaking mind. I'm like, no. Trust me. Meme magic is real. So.
Okay. Meme magic is real look at Brexit, right? Like meme magic is real.
Yeah.
Like it's real because of its influence on younger people, right?
Its ability to, so I tracked the genesis of this to Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart was the first person who, for my generation, the older millennials, really created that kind of humorous, where he's not actually making a salient argument about anything political, which is, I never liked Jon Stewart for that reason. I like him post Daily Show, but I'm saying
he's also back on Apple Plus. He's got a brand new show on Apple Plus.
Yeah, but
it's great. But yes, I get what you're saying. His satirical part of politics.
Yes, he popularized that for my generation to the extent, because every time I went into any, I went to a few universities. I went to community college and then a university. Anytime you walked into one of those student unions or those whatever, what are they always playing? When I was a kid, it was always Daily Show reruns or whatever.
Comedy Central, Daily Show, whatever. It was so good, and it became, and again, that goes right into what you were saying about the meme magic.
Culture, yes.
I think that led to the meme magic because of those hot takes on real life situations, and then it became so popular that he had to become political.
Yeah, and so he never, again, I was never aligned politically with anything he ever said. And he never said anything that I thought was necessarily profound, but that's what starts. And what happened is somehow the meme magic went from the other team to the right team. I don't know how that happened. It just happened that way, right? And now the official phrase is the left can't meme, and they really can't. I promise you.
No, that is a matter of perspective that, again, I get how you have, but and the fact that Jon Stewart didn't say anything profound I think is just awful for you to say something like that. But again, you're allowed your opinion. He said several things that were profound.
Right. So this first thing in the terms of service is you're not allowed to attack the guy who created it. Can you imagine? Do you know all the memes? Listen, I'm just going to say this. This reminds me of a certain chairman of a certain country who was, compared to a certain cartoon character, Winnie the Pooh. And the character is illegal in that country because of this. And here's the thing. I didn't know that. And I didn't believe him. I didn't believe that was who he was going to be. Right. And it lends credence to a lot of criticism about him that I didn't necessarily hold before to be true, that I maybe changed my mind about who he is as a person,
Well, I mean, again, this is the whole question of freedom, right? Can you have freedom without the negative consequences that it creates, right? Can you have freedom without the groups that sometimes are created under the guise of freedom, and how do you deal with them accordingly? In this case, You have a true social media platform that is going to bill itself as I'm not going to kick myself off of, I wouldn't kick me off of this platform, but your rules are more stringent than the ones you got kicked off from. It begs the question right off the bat of sincerity, right? What are you really trying to build here? And again, I think it's money. They've already gone that there's already a true social plus, which is they're going to be their version of a video platform, that kind of stuff. And then it brings us to our third part of this story, which is that this entire thing.
But before you get into the third part of the story, I just want to say this much. I'm part of other alternative social media. And I use Minds, MINDS, and I use Float. And let me tell you something. It's not the same as Twitter and Facebook because it's a little more insular of a community.
Right.
And, free speech is a little more fun to have when you can make people who don't like what you're hearing hear what you have to say.
True.
So I'll just say that, as someone who has been banned from Twitter and had to, jump to those other platforms, I got banned for making fun of someone of my same race. And I was accused of
Which you still should not be able to do, Danny, but all right. Okay.
All I said was he probably only speaks English, which is probably true.
Okay. Yeah, but still, Danny.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that, part of the fun is having people on there who don't like you, and the fact that this network won't do that is further moving the dialogue towards silos where we're not going to be discussing with each other, which is already happening on other social media platforms based on algorithms.
But that goes back to my thought that it's just a grift. If I create a silo of like-minded people, I now have a bucket of fish, right?
Now,
fish in a barrel that I can feed whatever propaganda, whatever information, and then product along with that, right?
So I just want to correct the big man here. He said there's going to be a Truth Social Plus. It's not true. There's a TMTG Plus and a TMTG News.
Yes.
So he's going to have this is in the press release. There's going to be a Netflix competitor and a Fox News competitor.
If it ever gets off the ground, which, again, nobody knows at this point whether it will.
But it's a SPAC, baby. You're going to line those pockets either way. Money.
Well, and I think that's really what it's about, is they'll create all of this money, this influx of money, and whether 100%. Any of it comes to reality is irrelevant.
Yeah. This is the Nikola Motors of social media companies.
100%. Absolutely. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Except they're gypping the public and not General Motors. So the third part of this.
The third part of this is, look, this is created from a... Go ahead.
This is my favorite. This is actually my favorite part of the story. I'll jump in on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Trump has historically done things where he's bought in social or multi-level marketing companies and rebranded them Trump. He's done a lot of different things where he white labels where you can go and buy a product that a normal person can buy the Target brand of something, right? And he'll brand it Trump and up the price. Trump vodka, Trump Airways, whatever it is. He uses his name like a brand. This isn't a new social media network. It's simply a Mastodon instance. It's his own, and which is a open source company, which is an open source social media network, which, as open source goes, like Android and others, if you, so this is a piece of software, not an operating system like Android, but I'm just saying Android. So there is a part of using the license of Mastodon where we're going to give you the software for free. You're going to, mix with it, mess with it, make it yours, but you have to put that code out there for people to be able to see.
Correct.
And they aren't
so
doing
that in turn is then freeware, and that's how freeware works. If you
That's
make
how
something better, that's the whole
Yes.
reason Android created freeware. It's why Tesla, Elon Musk has come out and said that once they finish the Tesla product that their electric cars run on, they want to make it open source
Yes.
so other electric companies can make it better or whatever.
Right.
This is the idea of we all can't know everything, but there might be someone out there that knows more, give them
Yes.
access, whatever. However, in the true Trumpian form in this case, they are not following the guidelines of the free and open source agreement that they have taken. So even though the platform, the social media platform itself, is not available to the general public because they had to shut it down because of what Anonymous did, now they're taking pre-orders, get on a list, right? So it's not even up. And they've already been served a 30-day notice that if they don't provide that open source,
their licensing will get yanked.
Exactly. And then there's no platform anyway.
Right. So I just want to remind everyone, this is not the first alternative social network. Our good friend, my personal good friend, Mike Lindell, we used to hang out all the time when I lived in Minnesota. We were good friends. My Pillow fame and fortune. Also said he was going to start a social media company called Frank Social, which went absolutely nowhere so fast it was hilarious.
Well, but look, it's not all of it. Look, Gab uses this software, right? This freeware.
So then
it's out there, right?
Yeah.
It's out there. And again, I'm not knocking anybody at TMTG using this freeware. Like, why not? It's there.
Yeah, why wouldn't
what
you?
I am knocking though is because somebody's going to eventually come out and go, oh, well, we didn't know, or we didn't whatever. And you did, because there's part of the article where you've already been seen where there's emails that show that someone internal working on this app for TMTG replied to an email saying that the Mastodon logo appearing inside was a bug they needed to fix. So they're acknowledging that they used it, that they're, you see them like, so there's no way out in this way except for to do the right thing, which is to open the source code. They've also been, and part of the lawsuit is not only are you not sharing the freeware, you're also saying in your terms and conditions that this is proprietary software.
Which it ain't.
It's not. So they're saying that it's proprietary, which it's not, and they're not sharing the source code.
Right. So fail. Major fail. Epic fail.
This is the part that I don't understand about a lot of these types. And again, I'm not picking on Trump in this case. This is actually a lot of different businesses. You have, how many people are employed that their job is their job for the last, let's say, 3 months is to get this out, to get this information out. And how did those people you paid are so dumb that this is what gets to market? That that somebody changes the word to proprietary. That someone, you know what I mean, goes, hey, that someone doesn't go, hey, yo, we can't do that.
So I wonder how much of that is the stupid people or it's boomer. Like what you said was so true. This is BoomerCon 101, which is, so there's different ways to approach business and developing technology. And one of the theories is, let's just put it all out there. It will metastasize. We're going to grow this thing so fast because we're going to have so many people joining and using our software that it's going to create a situation where we're going to be able to make money on the hardware, on the app, whatever. There's other ways to make money. And we're seeing this with Windows switched from like, hey, all the upgrades are free now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that the approach that has been a business, which is we're going to charge you for the operating system or the software or whatever, that has proven not to be a successful model. But the point is, when it comes to boomers, they're out to lunch on what works and what doesn't work, right? Which is why, as someone who is otherwise, politically savvy, I would say, I find boomer cons, which for those unfamiliar with the phrase, the boomer conservatives, to be a hilariously inept group of people who lack self-awareness. And when I hear them talk, all I can think is, how did you people survive?
Well, but that's what makes them out of touch, is they were in tune for their time. They were. It's how they got where they were, right? They were innovative thinkers of their time. But they have made one mass mistake, and guess what? This is a lot of old folks. This is not just boomers. This is probably the generation before them and the generation before them. This ability to believe that what you think lasts forever, right?
Right. I guess that is true.
The work tools that you've developed based on your experiences, and now you're successful, you think that now applies to a new generation or a new situation, and it just changes too fast now, right? So some gray-haired 55, 60, 65-year-old that they had in a bunch of boardrooms, 10 of them, and they think, oh, Trump media technology, that's awesome, oh, good job. And they've got a whole bunch of interns and everything around them going, this is the dumbest effing thing on the planet, and nobody's listening to that group of people.
So here's the other thing. Maybe this whole thing works for the audience that it's appealing to.
And that could be true, because them themselves, their demographic is the audience.
Yeah.
So maybe that's maybe the head, and you might be right. Maybe my way of thinking about this is a more broad spectrum where they were trying to be very targeted.
We're thinking about this as business people. You have to start thinking about this as a grifter. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, see that, and that's true. I will tell you that is a weakness of mine, is I've never been able to grab the mindset of and look, and I've had a lot of people try to pull me into the dark side, including the guy over there. But
why's it got to be the dark side?
I've had a lot of people try to pull me in the direction of, hey, just do this with your name, right? And you can, and it will lead to this, and that kind of stuff. And this does, you're right, kind of fall in that vein, right? If that is the end result, which we can't know, right? We can guess, we can have our opinions, but if that is the end goal, you're right. Maybe it just is, hey, this is how we get people on board, and once they're fish in a barrel, it's just taking out fish in a barrel.
And so my thought process too is perhaps their theory is, we're going to start with the Mastodon instance on our own, customize the crap out of it, and build it out so it's a little more of a Facebook competitor or something that feels like Facebook. And here's another thing I'll just say in trying to close out this topic. I despised the way these people were like, well, we have nowhere to go now. When there are a handful of libertarian-esque social media platforms that have been around, like Minds has been around for almost a decade.
Sure.
Okay. It's a great platform. I use it. I can put video, all this other stuff on it. I really like it. The fact that they said, well, that's not good enough for us. We want something that really appeals to our patriot, whatever dumb thing. I hope all of their data gets spilled on the dark web.
Well, it's already been shown to. Obviously, hackers have already done that. So I would be curious to know what they're planning to do about that between now and its release, right? But again, it goes back to they don't want an alternative. And when I say they, I mean anybody complaining about what Twitter is, what Facebook is, what LinkedIn is, what any of these big players are. Anybody complaining about them from any level, what they want is that platform with their way of thinking. That's it. Yes. They want to be on Twitter and be able to say what they want to say and have people.
Exactly.
They don't want an alternative. Yes. Because they want the mainstream version.
Yes. Hey, guess what? What human nature. We all want to be, Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank fame said, nobody wants what nobody wants, and everyone wants what everyone wants. Mm-hmm. It's such a apropos thing to this. But I think we're going to move on to the next story. What do you say, big man?
Absolutely.